And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Happy Monday. What's going on over there, Ben?
Doing well. How are you?
You have a nice weekend?
Yeah. Took the kids to the pool. Took my car to the shop, which is never fun, but it was fun. It was a good
now,
weekend.
was it one? And I've had both. Those good pool experiences or bad pool experiences?
Good. No.
Okay.
Strong pool.
Because sometimes the amount of effort going into getting to the pool, doing all of the pool things, not being cold or whatever, can outweigh the benefit of said pool. But sometimes they're just like the most magical thing ever. And then your kids go home wiped out and tired for the rest of the day, yet satisfied with how much fun they've had.
And you still need to be in the pool with your kids basically all the time because of their age.
Right.
6 and 2, 6 and 3?
3, almost 7.
Almost, yeah.
This week.
And I've got, 11 and 8, turning 12 and 9 this year. So they are.
Oh, you can take a nap on the lounge chair and be good to go.
12 and 8, excuse me. Yeah.
No, I'm in there practicing scoops the whole time, Yeah.
Yeah. So there. Just go play. Now my son, it's a Rock Olsen situation. He's just getting strong. And he's going to outweigh me before terribly long. Like in the next 4 years. He will be big. He's going to be bigger than I am.
Payback's coming, pal.
Yeah, he gets in the pool and he wants me to play with him like I play with his little sister because I can pick her up and throw her out of the pool still. And it's like, you're not that size anymore. And you're getting strong and it hurts when you scratch me.
So he needs to find a different pool experience. You should just aim him at other dads. Like, go get that guy.
Okay, he's bigger.
I don't know who he is, but he looks like he'd throw you around.
Yeah. But that's a weird thing when all of a sudden your kids are getting big.
So awesome. Pool experience.
Yeah,
That's
yours? Your weekend?
Yeah, we did the pool thing. We hung out with some neighbors, which is always fun to get to know the old neighbors who got a water slide bounce house.
Oh.
And it was like, oh, well, thank you for inviting us over to, again, wear out our children. Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we did one of those chill weekends. We, getting back from vacation, all that, chill a little bit. We got birthday party weekend next weekend with the 7-year-old. It was nice to just hang out.
Yeah. Well, good.
Not sleep in, that sort of thing. Our power went out in the middle of the night.
Oh.
So it got hot.
Hope you got those peach doors and windows.
Yeah, exactly. You felt bad. We went to the grocery store the next day by our house, and they were clearing out the whole meat section, and the freezers were all blocked off. I was like, yeah, the power was out. It's like, oh, that's a steep cost for the power going out for a few hours. Get a generator on that store.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, but I didn't ask.
Yeah.
But anywho, all right. Well, I hope everybody out there managed to have a good weekend. Ben, I was bummed that I'm not in Vegas because Summer League is randomly a kind of fun thing to cover. But also glad that I wasn't in Vegas after a couple of days of that searing heat. But interesting. We saw an interesting kickoff down there for the Jazz.
I thought you saw what you wanted to see. I wrote a little article about, not having Keontae George or Walker Kessler down there and what the opportunities that might open up for Isaiah Collier and Kyle Filipowski. And it was the other guy, Cody Williams, who I think really made the most of being able to be a central focus. And that's always going to be his battle. When he applies himself, he's truly awesome. Like, he's 6'9". He can clearly shoot. He can dribble. He likes to finish on top of the rim. He's not afraid of dunking the ball. Like, he's really good defensively. He recovers really well. He does all the things. He's just got to recognize that some team needs him to be a star, and he's got to act like a star sometimes when he's on the floor. And I'm not ruling it out. I just don't think it's ever been who he's been in his life. And whether it was a late growth spurt, and I don't even know the story in all honesty, or a sudden jump in talent because he was a top 5 recruit going to Colorado. It's not like he's some mystery. But, how he became this conversation for the number 1 overall pick early in the year, we know the injuries caused him to fall to 10, but he's got to get that alpha mentality of I'm going to be the guy, which a lot of those players naturally have. And some guys weirdly don't. Like Bryce Sensabaugh thinks he's an alpha, right? Bryce Sensabaugh thinks I should be the leading scorer. I should be the number 1 guy. I should get the ball every trip down the floor. By the way, news just came out. Bryce Sensabaugh has a torn tendon in his finger and is going to be out for the rest of Summer League. So that's going to open up even more shots. And then some guys, and I would put Taylor Hendricks in this group, don't really know how to be the it guy. Keontae George clearly has it. He is the it guy. He wants to take big shots. He wants to shoot a lot. He wants to be the face of a franchise. Cody Williams would really, really benefit the Jazz if he could channel that and evolve into that. And I think that's a hard thing to do.
All right. Here's where we're very different people, Ben. I don't care about any of that. In fact, when somebody has it without earning it, I find it obnoxious.
I totally agree.
Like Bryce Sensabaugh having any sort of alpha anything, I find annoying. Because what have you done? I think he's going to get through all that in the process of earning his spot on the team. I think everybody has to go through it, and it gets a little delicate when it's like a top 5 pick and they feel entitled to everything. But that's not, I think, what we're dealing with here. And I think you could throw Taylor Hendricks into the point I'm going to make here. All that stuff is teachable, and the stuff that he has is not. Like what you're talking about, all the finish on the rim, 6'9", yep. All that, all that sort of thing. He obviously can shoot. All that stuff is really hard, if not impossible, to coach or teach or whatever. I mean, Locke came on with us last week and said, I've given up on the notion that you can teach people to shoot. And you and I tried to, well, at least I did, pluck, figures out of history, and they're all like 20 years ago.
Sure.
And so both those guys have those things. They just need to figure out Taylor Hendricks has, I think, a little bit more of a challenge because some of his ball handling and that sort of thing is going to be really difficult for him to make into a weapon. I don't think you can say that necessarily about Cody Williams. But if we're like nitpicking about, not nitpicking, I don't mean that. That was too extreme.
No, that's fine.
But if we're going to focus on personality type and does he play like he belongs and all that stuff, it's like, well, he's going to get over that. And if he doesn't, I suppose it would be somewhat alarming. But like everybody has to figure out their role in the NBA. The idea that he would be a number 1 on a good NBA team, I mean, he could get there, but that's likely not going to be him, right? But the measurables are never going to be what holds him back. Whereas like somebody like Donovan Mitchell, where you're trying to say this guy's a top 10 player in the league or whatever, at 6'1", I don't think he really can be. I'm not in the role of scorer. I mean, Isaiah Thomas was around 6'1", right?
Yeah.
And John Stockton were 6'2", but they weren't letting the air out of the ball. They were running a traditional thing. You can't be the number one. Luka Doncic, I don't think could play the way that he does and be successful at 6'1". But the fact that he's 6'8" makes it a totally different story. Anyway, I don't want to get lost in all of it, but you can teach him to fit the role mentally. He's going to have to learn all that stuff. They all do. And we get older and mature and all those sorts of things. And if he, learns some lessons that he's got to apply himself in different ways, I would guess that the Jazz are going to help guide him there.
I totally agree with you. And
so,
the most important thing is the tools.
I think all that's coming.
The draft it's a genetic draft. You've got to hope you get the guys who have the size, and then you hope their skills match elite size, and then when they have elite size and skill, it generally works out. What I don't believe is that there is a singular type of mentality that wins in the NBA. So while I say he needs to evolve into being like a number 1 guy and wanting to be a star, the stupidest thing anyone ever talks about, I hate it, is the quote-unquote Mamba mentality. It's not a thing. I get that Kobe had it, was a specific thing. It's not what makes every player great. It made that player great. Tim Duncan didn't have it. Tim Duncan was a better player than Kobe Bryant. So, okay, so what is it? Well, Tim Duncan was 7 feet tall and was a great shot blocker and had perfect instincts. Okay, that worked too. So to that point, he doesn't need to become a jerk. He doesn't need to become me first. I've got to get the ball. I'm going to yell at my teammates when I don't touch it. He's just got to figure out that, like, hey, I'm honestly better than everybody else out here. And that's what I think he needs to recognize. Because what you saw, 2 nights ago, Saturday night, was he's just better than they are. He's taller. He moves quicker. He gets to the spots he wants to. He has weirdly great touch around the rim. He can step back into shots already as a 20-year-old or 19-year-old, however old he is. He just needs to recognize he's better than all these guys. And he probably will if he continues on this trajectory. And again, we're talking about him having one good game in Summer League. He had a bunch of good games early in his Colorado career and got hurt. But that's just, I think that's consistently going to be the push for him, is just realizing I can do all of these things on the court, and then you just need to make sure you are doing them. Because he can do them all, to the point that you're saying he has all the tools that you would hope to find.
Yeah. And keep in mind, too, for a little sympathy, that Summer League is a big step up, believe it or not, in talent from college. So he's really never played against this many good players at once. Mm-hmm. Like, that's definitely a thing. And that's why you see players who come back for their second and third year thrive a little bit more, because they're on solid footing, as opposed to this is the first experience. And actually, Salt Lake Summer League probably helps them in a weird way for that, because they have played a little bit. So it's good to see. Summer League's fun. It whets the basketball appetite. It keeps, nerds like Ben engaged, and that's a good thing. I still remain skeptical how much you can take from it. Bryce Sensabaugh could use some game on floor experience, so I'm disappointed to hear, or from the Jazz perspective, for that, because he could use it. And he's had an injury history of his own, and I know it has nothing to do with his hand.
Yeah, fingers random. That's good. It's not a knee or something.
Yeah, right. But, I saw Dante Exum have 16 different unrelated injuries.
Yeah, right. Some guys break. And that is a concern for Cody Williams. I mean, he had a wrist, an ankle, and a face at Colorado in 30 games.
Well, you hope the face isn't chronic.
Chronic face injuries.
Chronic, just multiple.
Didn't Jerry Sloan break his nose like 6 times, he said? It's like he had chronic face injuries.
Keep getting your nose in there. It's going to get broken.
But already good signs from Cody Williams, to go back to this. He took 6 threes. He never did that in college. Just like, if there was ever a time to be like, yeah, let's just go out there and see if I can get up 9 threes one game, college would have been fine to do it. And he just never did it.
Nah.
He just never did it. And he still has times when he catches the ball and he's like, I'll shoot. And it goes in. It's like, just shoot. It's like, you're that good. Just shoot the ball. And he was still 3 of 6 over the weekend. So nice to see it. I mean, again, attacking off the dribble. You saw a little personality after the dunk. He has all the tools. And I can't remember. I mean, Donovan Mitchell was in this conversation as far as having all the tools, and he showed it early. The problem was exactly what you said. He actually didn't have all the tools. He was less than about 8 inches of being the perfect player. If he was 6'9", Donovan Mitchell would be one of the best players in the NBA. He will always be 6'1", and he's never going to get there as a result. So the reason he got left off the Olympic team. There's not even conversations about him being on the Olympic team. He's not very big. He's not big enough. Cody Williams is big enough and has all these skills, and it's going to be about keeping it going.
By the way, on the 3-point thing, and you never know what coaching these guys get coming up. And I believe the coaching at the younger ranks is lacking. And no offense to any coaches who may be listening to the show, but like the idea that it's all about winning instead of development, and that it gets caught up in like you have to have a super team of the best players ever, and then you don't develop. I don't think sometimes they get the best coaching.
We know they don't.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Again, if you're a high school coach and you've got, I don't know, what do you owe the rest of the high school players? Like, I think that's a real question. I'm sure high school coaches have real interesting questions about it, where you get the 6'9" guy who is saying, guys, my goal is to be in the NBA, and if I'm going to be in the NBA, I need to shoot 7 threes a game in high school. And he says, well, these 4 other kids or 8 other kids on this roster that are 5'11" really want to win a state title, and that's going to change their life forever and have this great memory for them. So you're going to play center. You can't stand outside and shoot threes, but you score every single time if we drop the ball down to you in the paint, and I know you want to shoot threes. We've got 5'11" Andy Turleton who will sit out there and shoot threes.
Turleton.
Whatever. He'll shoot threes. You go be a big guy in the paint. And then he gets to college and he wants to be there for 28 games, and you can't learn how to shoot in 28 games.
It's not just high school, though, because I'd throw the AAU in there where it's coaches are saying, hey, you, Williams, go dunk on that guy.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do highlight reels and win tournaments and get backing from shoe companies and all this stuff that isn't actually developing basketball players. And I know that's not a blanket statement across the board, but it happens. And, why would I shoot 6 threes a game? Are you kidding? I'm just going to go spin that guy around and dunk in his face, and then I'll go do a Kobe fadeaway on that guy, and then we're going to win by 10. What do you want from me?
And, you can get a little bit of a bad reputation. Not that I think this was a bad reputation, but it's like a storyline that Lauri Markkanen's dad did not let him go play center anywhere. All of his coaches in Europe wanted him to play center. His dad said, nope, he's a guard. They said, what? No, he's not. He's 7 feet tall. And they said, no, he's a guard. And he kept transferring teams so he could play on the perimeter. And everyone said every time they got him, he's the center. Until they found a team that would just play him at these positions where he played small, essentially. And it's benefited him greatly. He's one of the great shooters on the planet. But his teams probably didn't love it.
Right.
Dad was making all the calls.
And it's better in Europe, honestly, than it is here. But, yeah, I don't know what kind of coaching he's gotten. I do like the idea, though, that one of the Jazz coaches got in his ear and said, I know this may make you uncomfortable, but, we're going to need you to hoist a few more, find a few more threes. And he went out there and did it. Because that's not necessarily right now his ticket to a 30-point game, right?
Right.
So I think that says something about him, too. Because he's certainly not going to be the best player on this Jazz team this year.
No, he's not.
That's not going to happen at any point unless it's like a Donovan Mitchell-like emergence, and I don't think that's ever fair to pretty much expect of anyone.
Right.
He was like, what was he, the first, what was a rookie to average over 20 points and something. And win a first-round playoff series since who was it? Was somebody legendary.
David Robinson and Carmelo Anthony. I think the only two to average 20 and get their team to the playoffs, much less win a series.
Right. Like, that's just not realistic. It's not realistic for anybody. So, how are you going to fit into this team, and what are you going to work on to do it? But I think he's in absolutely intriguing. And the reason he was such a highly sought-after recruit. And I do think, and maybe this is just one of those feel-good storyline things, but I do think that he's got an engaged older brother who's done it before, could actually make a difference.
I totally agree.
And I say engaged because they obviously have a great relationship. I mean, he's at everything. It's awesome. But he's got and not a way older brother who's removed from it all, but like a older brother who's going through the exact same thing except for 3 years ahead?
Yeah, 3 years ahead.
That's helpful.
Yeah, this will be his third year. This will be J-Dub's third year, which is crazy.
So that's nice.
Yep.
To have that voice, because and you realize this, Ben, because you see it up close a little bit, but so much of if a career goes well or not depends on who's got the player's ear, and that's why it's such a corrupt business to get a player's ear. But if they're getting good advice or they're getting bad advice, actually makes a huge difference, believe it or not.
And by all accounts, J-Dub's just like the best guy in the world.
It would appear so.
He's just cool, and he's there for his brother, and they root for each other. Clear. I mean, he's been at every game so far.
Seems like they've got a pretty good family structure kind of thing going there. I would say. However, I'm not going to vouch for anyone, but
you get Kawhi Leonard's uncle, who wants him out of a winning situation, and good for Kawhi. He's good enough to go win in Toronto and wherever.
But he fired, who was it that he fired? CAA? He had an agent that really kept the weird on one side and the relations with the team on the other and was really good at it. And then Kawhi fired that agent, promoted his uncle, and all of a sudden the weird and the team really mixed and it didn't work. And I think Kawhi's been making interesting business decisions ever since.
Yeah. So, you're right. Having the family member that is close, that is in their ear, that makes sense to be in their ear, that leads them in the right direction is enormously important. And in that sense, I think all the background on Cody. All the intel on him is pretty stellar as well.
Gordon Hayward's family had an interesting involvement in his career, but I'll give an example of the positive. When Hayward got into the league, it was the lockout, or the lockout was coming the next year. I think it was his dad who got in his ear and told him, like, you need to save every nickel. And he drove around in the Honda Accord or whatever he had in college. I was like, oh, well, that was some pretty solid advice probably. Because if it's a long lockout, no one wants to hear from the rookie.
Right. Yeah. Whatever.
Okay, Rook.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear from you.
So they're back.
But you never know.
Tonight.
Anyway, and the fact that his brother is in his ear, I think is probably a really good thing. Because the Jazz, obviously want him to be pulling in the right direction. That's not always the case. I mean, Enes Kanter once said, "I'm playing because I'm a top 5 pick." In his case, that was the only reason you're playing.
Yeah.
He went and bringing it full circle. You got to earn that alpha stuff. You got to go out there and you got to earn that alpha stuff. Kobe had to have, if we want to go Mamba mentality, he had to airball all those shots in the playoffs against the Jazz.
A famous story is he was supposed to be in He Got Game instead of Ray Allen. He airballs all these threes in Salt Lake City and says, I can't go shoot a movie. I need to become an NBA player. I'm not good enough right now. And he stays behind. That's a good thing because he could have been like, no, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm a star. I'm going to go do star things. But it's the wrong order. You will become a star if you put in the work, and he didn't skip the work.
You've got to earn all that.
You've got to earn all of it. So that's got to be what part of Cody's progression. And then on top of it, I thought Isaiah Collier did play well, and I thought Kyle Filipowski finally had a good game because he hadn't been very good in Salt Lake City, but I thought he played very well on Saturday as well.
So there you go. We'll have more hot Summer League coverage throughout the week here on Jake and Ben. It is Open Championship week, Ben, and it's time to get a qualifier for the Uinta Golf Giveaway. Be caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE, and we're going to assign you a golfer. If your golfer wins, you win FootJoy brand rain gear in honor of the Open Championship because it rains over there.
It does.
Quite a bit.
Notorious. We could use a little.
Do you have a pair of FootJoys?
I don't.
I love mine. I wear them not on the golf course. Like if it's raining outside, I'm wearing my FootJoys. Stay tuned. More next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I want to remind you about Win Ticket Wednesday. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to see A Day to Remember at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater coming up July 21st. Ben, is that next weekend?
Yes.
Anyway, listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. Time for the top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations to serve you, one on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall, the other Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. All right, Christian, where are we starting today?
Number 1, Ike Larsen confirms himself that he is staying at Utah State.
The Utah State Star tweeted out, "Yo, Aggie Nation, I'm not going anywhere. We gonna do this for real, but I need your help. Serious inquirers, please DM me." I don't know what that means.
That means I need money.
What do you need help with?
Money?
Yeah, it's got to be, right?
Yeah, right.
I think he has.
Well, then why is he committing to coming back? If you're waiting to get paid.
He has an NIL deal, I think, with Arctic Circle. I think he's got a shake.
Oh, I love it.
Maybe he wants to move up the chain.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have like the shakes or the food?
I like it all.
You like it all?
It tastes like childhood. Yeah.
I like their chicken fingers quite a bit.
All right.
They've got weird.
I'm in.
They've got a weird vinegary honey mustard, but I'm a honey mustard guy. I like it. And then a cookie dough malt, they're pretty good.
Oh, I'm a fan.
See, Ike Larsen, that's how you sell Arctic Circle.
I am shocked by this.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Do you want to reveal our run-in with Ike Larsen?
I am absolutely shocked Because you heard all these rumors, and we weren't at Mountain West Media Day, but we were kind of adjacent and, talking about what's going on in the world. And it didn't sound good. Like tomorrow's the transfer portal day. It sounded like there could be a big wave of Aggies hitting that portal. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
right. Tomorrow, their thing opens up.
I don't know what's coming, but there was kind of a rumor that something like that may happen.
And it was weird. Okay, so we saw them in the airport flying back from Vegas.
That gets me to this. We get to Vegas. Ben and I are walking to the gate, and we see the Aggie contingent, including Ike, walk right by.
Yeah.
We think, oh, okay, well, there they are. And lo and behold, they end up on our plane. And not only did they end up on our plane, they ended up, like 3 rows in front of me. And you were a little further back, I think, Benjamin. But right next to, they put Ike in the middle.
In the middle
In
seat.
coach. They put him in the middle. This is the coach, not business class or whatever it is, Comfort Plus. But here's your coach ticket. And guess what? Not only are you in the middle, but you're going to sit right next to Kyle Ireland of KSLSports.com.
Hockey Insider.
He's going to have the window seat. He's going to have a better seat than you. If I'm Mike, I'm sitting there like, that's it.
That was enough.
I have had it. I am not going to sit here next to this mouth breather and coach.
Admittedly, I don't know how every team got down to Vegas. I don't even, Utah for a while there was taking a private plane, and they'd always show the photos of Witt getting on the private plane with whatever 2 players he had chosen. Now it's up to 4 players to go to Big 12 Media Day. So maybe they did fly commercial. Maybe they didn't fly privately. But, yeah, coach, middle seat, no handler at all.
No. I did once sit next to Trevor Riley on the way back from Pac-12 Media Day. So I guess
it's possible, sure.
But, yeah, but that was a different day and age.
It was just a little strange. It was a little strange to see them with the
hey, guy,
lunch pail like everybody else. It's like you're trying to win these guys over right now. Maybe this is the time to splurge for a little plane to get them down there, to be like, hey, guys, we're totally committed to you. We're not putting you on the $180 flight to Vegas.
And believe you me, I'm sure Kyle was just mortified when he had to tap them on the shoulder and say, man, I had like 16 ginger ales. I'm going to have to.
I got to
You're going to have to put your iPad down. Because
by the way, speaking of that, they were just down to only coffee or water. No ginger ales on the plane. Is that just because it was a short trip to Vegas and they didn't want to stock the whole thing?
I don't know. I had a coffee.
Yeah, I had a coffee.
They said
too.
Coffee or water. I was like, coffee sounds good.
Is there a worse flight to only have coffee coming out of or going to Salt Lake City?
That's probably intentional, right?
We got
to sober these guys up.
But strange to, anyways, only have coffee leaving or going to Salt Lake because most of us aren't coffee drinkers.
But I thought for sure that moment, I was like, look at that middle seat. I thought this dude's out of here.
That was
That's disrespectful.
That middle seat to the transfer portal.
At least it was on one of the more premium airlines, not one of the budget ones.
We dealt it.
You got Delta.
We dealt it. It was nice.
You got Delta. No problem. Hilarious.
I thought it was a nice flight. Thought it was an easy flight. But anyways, congratulations
to
Utah State. That's a huge returner.
If he was kind of bitter, that would have been a big faux pas to sit him right next to Kyle. Like
this middle seat's a middle finger.
All Kyle had to do was be like, how's it going?
Yeah.
What's going on with you? Good times? They ran a big risk there. Kind of like when they ran their women's coach out after that. After she had been fired.
It's clearly that story we're at the beginning of this story and not at the end.
I guess. I can't believe he's staying. I really can't.
With all the Utah State dismissals.
Now I heard Utah State's interim head coach was Scotty, and he sounds very impressive. And maybe he was able to kind of stem the tide, so to speak. But I'll be curious to see what happens tomorrow. Well, this is probably a pretty good start.
Their best player?
Is he sitting next to Kyle? Next.
Number 2, the Jazz asking price for Lauri Markkanen has been revealed.
According to Shams Charania, today in The Athletic, the Golden State Warriors have been the most engaged team for Markkanen in recent weeks, as league sources tell The Athletic. They've discussed a proposal around Moses Moody, a former lottery pick, multiple first-round picks, multiple pick swaps, and multiple second-round picks. The Jazz, however, have asked for the bulk of the young talent and capital the Warriors possess, including Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, and Brandon Podziemski, along with picks, which has been a non-starter thus far for Golden State. So the Jazz want all of it, which is an easy thing to do right now. You can't do anything with Lauri Markkanen until August 6th anyways. I mean, you could trade him now if you wanted to, but there's no real deadline. There's no rush for the Jazz right now. Now, if you get past August 6th and he can't sign until August 7th, you can't trade a player for 6 months after they sign a contract. The problem is that puts you past the trade deadline, so you couldn't trade him at all in season this year if you sign him after August 6th, the very first day he's eligible to sign this extension. And thought would be, if you're the Markkanen camp, okay, just purposely wait to sign it on the 8th then, so you can't get traded in season. So that's not constantly hanging over your head. You don't have to worry about it.
Any fear he's going to retire in the next year?
I don't think so.
Oh, then who cares?
Yeah, who cares? I'm with you. And you're not trading Lauri Markkanen in season. You don't see those types of blockbusters generally in season. You do it in the offseason. So if they don't do it this year, they would do it next offseason if they're going to trade him.
And he's a great asset. And actually, if he's under contract, he's even a better asset.
Yeah, right. If you got him for 4 years.
Yeah. So, whatever.
I went on
As for the moon.
JJ and Alex on Friday, and I kind of said it seems pretty obvious to me what the Jazz are doing. They're saving all their money. They haven't even signed Drew Eubanks or Kyle Filipowski to deals yet. Like, they agreed to a deal with Drew Eubanks. I'm sure they've got something worked out with Filipowski that he feels safe enough to play in Summer League without a guaranteed contract is insane to me. But he must have some reassurance that he's going to be taken care of. The Jazz are maintaining all their roster flexibility. They're saving money to sign Lauri Markkanen. That's why they're not paying him money right now or paying other players money right now in free agency. So they can just hold on to money until August 6th and give him a $15 million raise and then extend him on top of it to a max deal. And they haven't replaced Simone Fontecchio or Kelly Olynyk, and those two guys help you win games. So they're not prioritizing winning games. They are prioritizing re-signing Lauri Markkanen. That's the plan. Bring Lauri back, lose games, have another good draft pick next year, start from there.
See how it goes.
See how it goes. But that very much feels like what the Jazz are showing their cards. But if you want to throw all your good young players and a bunch of draft picks, they'll listen. And if you want to meet that price, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Pajemski, Moses Moody, and all your picks, you owe it to yourself to listen to that type of deal.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound like that's what Golden State is willing to give.
Yeah, and maybe they're
So-
but that's where the Jazz aren't all that willing to give up on Lowry
Whatever.
either.
Yeah, that's
So
where
you-
again, it's where all their leverage comes from. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah. It's a good spot to be in.
It's a great spot to be in.
Yeah.
The problem is timeline. When people get focused on time and all that stuff, it can turn the heat up a little bit. But as long as you can be patient. I mean, I got to tell you, that analysis of where where the team is headed doesn't really excite me as the host of the pre-half and post-game show.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean it's the wrong way to go either.
Right.
I'm going to talk a lot of young players. You're
You
going
are,
to
and
write
you will.
about a
You
lot
will
of
see
young players.
You will see a lot of Cody Williams. You'll see a lot of year 2 Taylor Hendricks and Keontae George, and we'll see what Bryce Sensabaugh looks like.
Man, we need more Mike Smith.
You'll see Isaiah Collier.
Nobody can take up airtime like my guy Mike.
Yeah, you're going to need some features, some benchmarks to help eat up some time. Jazz back in action tonight. Sacramento Kings, 8 o'clock.
All right, what's next?
Number 3, Jalen Brunson takes a huge pay cut.
In a weird way. So he could wait until next year and add like an extra $50 million on his deal. He signs early. He loses about $10 million a year. But what he does now, it's the same thing Donovan Mitchell actually just did with the Cavaliers. His contract will expire. He can opt out of the final year of his deal right as he gets to his 10-year anniversary in the NBA, which allows you to sign a huge contract. And now this one already would have been huge. He could have gotten like $260, and he signed for $150 and 1 fewer years. But now he can opt out earlier and get that 10-year deal started versus waiting until his 11th year. And as you hit these benchmarks in the NBA of certain amount of time you've been in the league, that helps you. But you have to stay healthy. If you Isaiah Thomas it and you destroy your hip, no one's backing up the Brinks truck.
You know what? Here's where my mind immediately went, and it's just hilarious to me. Do you think agent Leon Rose would ever let a client of Leon Rose sign a deal like this?
Not a chance.
But general manager Leon Rose is selling team-friendly deals. All those things that you just mentioned right there are bullet points from the sales job that the Knicks threw at Brunson.
Yes.
Whose agent, I believe, is Leon Rose Jr.
Yeah, right.
And said, sign this team-friendly deal. This will be great. Leon Rose, the agent, would have laughed them out of the room and said, no, we want the guaranteed dough. and you let us worry about, what year he hits free agency or not. And we'll worry about that down the road. But right now, you expect me to leave, what has it been, $113 million?
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed in my client's bank, let alone a commission check to me. But Leon Rose, the GM's like, hey.
You want to be You want to be beloved? Yeah.
Hey, Jalen. It's going to be a PR win.
Yeah.
And you're going to be eligible for your 10th year. And, yeah.
You get to play with all your Villanova buddies.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep the squad together.
You can hear the general manager's sales pitch, and it's funny. If Leon, there's no way Leon Rose, the agent, would ever take that, ever.
I am pro players taking less money. Absolutely. Yeah, you can squeeze every penny out of a franchise if you want. You can't squeeze every penny out of a franchise and then complain you're not winning. Damian Lillard, I know you're not winning in Portland. Part of the reason is you take all the money.
Yeah.
And you're not worth all the money. You can get it because the market says you can get it, but you're not good enough to win at that salary price. So I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You either can have all the money and lose and be happy with it, or you can take less and give us some flexibility.
The danger of the altruistic thinking, because I hear you, is that we don't live in the land of unicorns. And you know what? Portland made a horrendous mistake by giving him that money.
Yes, they did.
Whose mistake was that?
Portland's.
Damien's or Portland's?
Portland's.
It was Portland's.
Yep, it was.
It was Portland's big time. So, I don't know. Expecting it, I think you're walking down. You're just protecting teams from themselves? What sense does that make?
Yeah, and I don't think you owe it to your team to do it. Do I think that some NBA players obsess and look, Paul George is going to a better situation probably in Philly now than he was with the Clippers because the Clippers have shown they can't get over the hump. But he couldn't take $4 million less a year at this point in his career. How much money are you making in your high interest savings account right now? You're making an extra 4.5%, 5%, or just put it in the stock market and make 10%. You can't afford a $4 million pay cut next year. You made $250 million this year, you bozo.
Easy for you to say.
It is.
It's easy to spend other people's money. It's easy for me to buy new golf clubs for you in my brain.
Correct.
Than it is for you to go get golf clubs. It's just, I don't know. And speaking of agents, it's actually literally their job to weed out that thinking.
Correct.
Which, again, makes this deal so funny. I mean, Tom Brady can give his agent the finger and say, hey, I'm just going to sign a deal to give him a little wiggle room. It's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, your average run-of-the-mill agent can't be letting this sort of thing happen because that affects everybody.
Right. So, thinking mid-level NBA player trying to hang on. Drew Eubanks, his agent needs to be tough as nails.
Yeah.
We got to get you that $5 million because it's going to double your career earnings and it's got to be guaranteed. You can't be doing team-friendly deals, Drew Eubanks. That doesn't behoove you at all because truthfully, you're not going to make enough in your career to never think about working again. You're just not in this day and age.
Yeah.
Some of these other guys at the top end, I'm less worried about.
And honestly, be careful sometimes of team-friendly deals. The Jazz signed Mehmet Okur after he did his Achilles. And the whole PR campaign around that is, look at this team-friendly deal that Memo signed. It's yeah, I may never play again, but
gonna play.
He's got a guaranteed three years. Yeah, I tell you, and it's not a max deal.
Yeah, and we've seen guys get blamed for taking too much. Andre Karolinko. And you know what? John Stockton took less his whole life until the very end so they could keep re-signing Jeff Hornacek. And it's who cares? Didn't get you to the promised land. Still didn't get you there.
No, and that's the thing. I never blamed Karolinko the person.
Right.
I think Karolinko the player left a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
But Karolinko the person, of course, it was Larry Miller's fault. He gave Andre that money.
Greg Ostertag. It's not Greg's fault. He got $54 million for 6 years or whatever it was. Jess gave it to him.
Larry bet on the wrong guy.
Yeah. I love our job here. If Salt Lake Community College wants to rename the gym after me, give me $1 million a year to be their play-by-play guy, I will listen to them. It's their mistake. It's an enormous mistake. It's totally irresponsible for the good people to Salt Lake Community College, but I will listen to them.
Unfortunately, an outcome for Jalen Brunson could possibly be that he gets hurt severely and he cost himself $113 million.
You think Tom Thibodeau playing him 48 minutes a game at 6'1" is going to be bad for his health?
I don't think it's going to be good.
Yeah, real chance he doesn't get the max at 10 years, even if that's how they're packaging it and selling it.
The fact that Leon Rose would hire him, it just goes to show how hypocritic hypocritical, that's what I'm looking for, all these actors are. Like, Leon Rose, the agent, would never want his player to play for Tom Thibodeau. But who's the hire that he makes right out of the gate?
Tom
Thibodeau.
Yep.
The guy that doesn't give two rips about his players or their health.
Yep.
I'm going to hire that guy.
Game to game. Yep.
It's wild.
No big picture.
Absolutely wild. All right. Stay tuned. We'll have more Jake and Ben coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. Ben, did you pay attention to the insanity at the, what was it, Copa Final or whatever in Miami?
I did. I watched the, Euro final earlier in the day, and then I saw the highlights of everyone breaking into the building.
So not a good sign for the security apparatus.
Correct.
In Miami, which this is going to be a World Cup venue, if I'm not wrong. So that's not a good sign. Somewhere, some ticket salesperson was like, no, what are we doing? I mean, there's these lunatic fans that are crawling in through like a duct.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one?
Absolutely. Bruce Willis going in Die Hard style.
Really? That's what we're doing?
The Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Okay. I would be so bummed if I had bought this ticket 4 years ago.
Got there.
Spent $8,000.
Some drunken
I
idiots
got a
in my
good
seat.
spot. I got the ticket. We're making a memory of a lifetime. You go down there. There's just some family that's like, we're not moving.
Hey, we came in through a duct. We're staying.
All the other
What are you gonna do
20,000
about
people
it?
in the stadium are in the wrong seat also. You think I'm going to move for you? Yeah, a disaster. It's amazing we don't see that more often. Thank goodness we don't.
Amazing that we don't see it more often.
Because 20,000 people have the power.
Well, yeah, I'm telling you, when the Jazz had most of their ticketing and stuff outside, some of those really cold January nights,
All
they're
right.
like, hey, if we storm the doors
We're
here,
going in.
we can get warm. There's warmth there, and we're cold out here. Let's all get together.
Can't stop all of
And
us.
it's time to go. That was probably a big part of the motivation for the Reno, I bet, when they made the ticketing and all that stuff inside. So people, there was that extra layer where you could come in and then go through the turnstiles. Like, we got to get these grumpy people inside. It's amazing something hasn't happened.
It'll be strange if they, everything's headed towards them radically redesigning the building, how that's going to look, because they want the entrance now to be on the true east side where the corner is. They want that to be the entrance now. So it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah, they can do anything.
Yeah, they can, of course, yeah.
I watched them pull off the last Reno in one offseason.
Yeah, it's a sandbox.
It's incredible.
You can fix whatever you want to fix. You've got the money and you've got the ability. I'm sure, is it Oakland? Is it Oakland who did it?
Last time, yeah.
Last time?
Are they on board again?
Yeah.
Right.
You want me to do it again? You just gave me $900 million to do it 3 years ago or whatever it was, 8 years ago, 6 years ago. You want to do it again? Sure. We'll do this every 5 years if you want to.
There's a lot of great engineers out there that like the challenge.
Yeah.
They're like, you want me to do what? Oh, yeah. Well,
Got the bodies?
whatever.
You own some cranes?
I'm astounded by Skylines rebuilding is going on currently, and I drive past that every day. How they could keep one old school going while building a totally new facility in like the parking lot. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm glad that's not my job. My brain doesn't work that well.
Engineers love it.
I'm sure.
Oh, man, they sit down with their CAD system, and they're like, oh, you just watch this.
Watch this.
You want me to put the entrance on the east side? Brace yourself, pal. Here it comes.
Not for me.
Bam, pretty sweet entrance right there. Here's all the math that makes it work.
My first thought would be like, nah, there's a building here. Can't do it. Can't do it. Guys,
Not
it
possible.
cannot be done.
Anything above just like a lean-to, Ben's not going to, it just can't be.
Ryan, you said you had an option in Bluffdale. Go with that. This building can't be changed. I don't know how to do this. Go back to Bluffdale. That'll be easier for me. But there's problem solvers. I'm not one of them. I'm a problem creator.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, Right. I call it challenging groupthink, but really I'm an instigator.
See, I'm more of a problem pointer-outer.
You're doing it wrong.
Exactly. Which I'd probably rather be than a problem creator.
Sure, it's better.
But easier than problem solver.
Neither help.
No, nothing.
Neither fix anything.
No. I mean, my living is to pop on the microphone and say, hey, that team really stunk out there. Well, how did they make it better? I don't know.
Not my problem.
Don't you get paid to figure that out? Boy, that team stinks. Why do they stink? Well, I could give you a number of different reasons.
How do you fix it?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's your problem.
Not up to me.
All right. I love this job. Stay tuned. We'll have more coming up next. It's Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben want to remind you, nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit the nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union. Real quick before we dive into Big 12 possible expansion, Ben, I was just reading Bronny James' comment to ESPN about possibly playing in the G League. He said, quote, "I'm just looking forward to playing any basketball I play, no matter what level I'm playing at." And then he was also asked about his shooting because it's been awful. He says, I just feel like I'm in a little slump right now.
About 14 months worth.
I feel so bad for him. I feel so bad.
Did you see the photo of him at the post-game press conference? It kind of went a little bit viral. He was standing in front of the backdrop that they do, and it looked like LeBron at the finals. Every notable NBA reporter was there. Probably literally 30 reporters after a summer league game on a 55th overall pick who had 6 points and 5 rebounds. It's just like, yeah, it's not possible for you to succeed.
Have you ever been, you're a snowboarder, but I suppose you could apply this to skateboarding too or whatever. But with me, I'll pick skiing. Have you ever skied with people who are unbelievably good and like light years better than you?
Yes.
And you kind of look like a moron out there because you're not them. Now imagine having to sit down with people after that horrible ski run to answer questions about why you're not better.
Why are you not them?
Why are you not them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what do you mean, why am I not them?
Right.
Did you watch those guys? Those guys are incredible.
Yeah, those guys are the best of the best.
I mean, I fantasize about being that good. What do you mean you're asking me why I guess I think I'm in a little slump right now?
I'm out here trying.
I got down.
Yeah, right. I'm still standing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm not, big mountain skier extraordinaire, dropping cliffs and doing all this stuff. I'm not that good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I shouldn't be on the same mountain as those skiers.
Yep. The nice thing is, you had the ability, if you really wanted to. I had the ability, I'm going to go sit in the grass
I'm going to hit the lodge.
Yeah, you're going to go to the lodge.
I'm going to hit the lodge.
But I don't need to because no one's going to ask me questions about why I'm not skateboarding with you guys. I'm not good enough is the reason. And I'm not good enough. And I can sit it out, and we all recognize that you're not going to question me for it. You'll encourage me if I want to try, but it's fine if I don't.
But I can't keep up.
But he doesn't have that ability. He has to start, and he has to go up against Reed Shepherd, who, by the way, is just awesome. He's just absolutely an awesome player. He's going to be great in the NBA. But Bronny is not as good as Reed Shepherd. He's just not. And then you got to answer questions about why you're not as good as Reed Shepherd. It's like, I don't know. He has perfect shooting touch.
And you're going to say I'm in a slump. You're not going to say, I am in way over my head.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near as good as any of these guys. No, I'm in a little slump right now. And somebody asks you if you're going to play in the G League. I'm going to play wherever they tell me to go.
Yeah. Right. Yes. I'll do that.
This story continues to amaze me,
Yeah,
but that's
brutal.
I feel terrible for him because he has to get humiliated night after night and then be like, hey, what's going on with you out there? I'm in a slump right now. Or I should be playing backup at San Jose State.
And I recognize people saying, don't feel bad for him. He's signed a $5 million deal, which I agree with, but money was never going to be a problem for Bronny James, actually.
Nope. His phone was going to still turn on, yeah.
He was always going to have just as much money as he needs. If Bryce, what's the next kid?
Yeah.
Bryce doesn't make it, his dad doesn't cut him out of the family.
It's going to be fine.
He's still going to have money. So,
but having to sit and talk about my failures that really it's not my fault at all in front of a panel of media, be awful.
Yeah, it's awful.
Awful. All right, let's talk about, speaking of media, let's talk about Big 12 conference expansion. You said this during the break, Ben. It appears more realistic to you that Florida State and Clemson could possibly make the jump to the Big 12.
We just keep getting more reports. So it's not like I'm on the phone with my, people at Clemson. Believe it or not, I don't have those. Talking about how they're going to join the Big 12. Jason Scheer from Wildcat Authority, he's a guy, he's a blogger, but he has been all over this type of Big 12 expansion for a long time. Did a lot with Utah, Arizona, Colorado, Arizona State in recent years. He seems to have his thumb on the dial. It's what he does. He even said, according to sources, there's an internal belief in the Big 12 that Florida State and Clemson are likely to join the conference within the next year or so. We keep getting more. There's just so much smoke here. I get the feeling that it is trending in that direction.
Yeah, maybe, because the last time they tried to talk something into existence, it actually worked, which is pretty incredible. So, and Scheer was at the front of that, you're right. But you know where he got all his info is from the PR firm that Brett Yormark hired.
Correct.
So, internal belief, I mean, there's an internal desire. I believe that. But there's still so many hurdles that would have to, for it to happen, including the Big Ten and the SEC passing on both those schools, which I don't know if that would happen. Like, this feels to me like it could be a leverage play on their end. Like, Florida State likes to prop up a conference, likes to be the big dog in the league. They could threaten to do that. I just don't know how it makes any sense financially. But, yeah, I think it would be great for the local schools if it happened. Two big names like that joining the league. I think that'd be a huge deal.
The nice thing for the Big 12, and kind of the funny part about it, is that they need Clemson and Florida State. Now, they will be fine without them, but Clemson and Florida State come in immediately as the best draw.
Huge brands. No, I mean, they'd bend over backwards to get those schools. That's what I say. I believe the internal desire to get them.
Absolutely. I believe there's a huge push, and everybody would rally. And that's where the Big 12 is in a silly spot that is actually an advantage over the Big 10 and the SEC, where if all three of those schools lined up offers, and let's say it was even $25 million from the SEC a year, $30 million from the Big 10, and $40 from the Big 12, they would pick either the Big 10 or the SEC. Like, those schools would take less money up front early on to join the bigger conferences than they would the Big 12. But the Big 10 and the SEC don't need Clemson and Florida State. And the Big 12 would love to have them and will do whatever they can to get them there.
See, that's why I believe this is a
leverage play. I certainly think there's a real possibility.
The Big 10, I mean, think of how things unraveled last time, right? Colorado jumps, and then that panics the Big 10. Actually, it panics, Oregon and Washington. And then all of a sudden the Big 12 talks everything else into existence. But Oregon and Washington panicked. Then the Big 10 said, oh, okay, you can come in. But if you do, you're going to take like 10 cents on the dollar. And Oregon and Washington said, fine, whatever.
Make it 5.
But right, we don't care.
Yeah.
Just let us in.
Yeah.
That's that's what the Big 10 or the SEC, whatever, wants. The Big 10 could never leak it like the Big 12 can, could never leak to Jason Scheer or whoever. There's strong interest in the Big 10 in Florida State and Clemson because all that leverage goes right out the window where all of a sudden Florida State and Clemson are like, oh.
There is there?
There is a desire, eh? Well, let me tell you, we're not going to take that 10 cents on the dollar that you offered Washington and Oregon. Certainly not. We're coming in full boat or whatever the case. I mean, it can leak from the Big 12 because it can.
It can also leak from Clemson and Florida State in that same spot because they can use the Big 12 as leverage.
But it's never going to come out of the SEC or the Big 10, even though Florida State or Clemson, I would imagine, would do whatever they could to get in there. But they're going to leverage it out there. Oh, we could go to the Big 12.
and are good enough that it wouldn't be weird for either of those schools to join either of those conferences.
But I don't think that's the master plan for the Noles or the Tigers. I believe the Big 12 would do it tomorrow.
Yeah, yes, they would. That's the advantage, is it wouldn't take any arm twisting of any of the other, what are there, 38 schools right now in the Big 12? How many? 16?
16.
They would all say yes, no doubt.
Immediately.
Bring them in. In fact, it would raise the value of the conference significantly for every school.
Yep.
It would help their next TV negotiation.
They could probably tear up this one and renegotiate. I don't know that for a fact, but I mean, there could be a chance where they say, okay, well, this value is so great, we're going to do it again. But I mean, so that's the hard part I have with this reporting, is that it feels like this is a lot of media leverage play stuff. And maybe the Big 12 talks it into existence. And again, then the macho corporate donkey wrestler, Brett Yormark, deserves some sort of award. What is the macho lion donkey wrestler? I got to look up that scene. Anyway, I'll give him tons of credit if he pulls a rabbit out of his hat twice, but I'm not going to buy into it until it happens. We'll find it.
It's I just keep waiting for the summer that we're not talking about conference realignment, and it's just not ever going to come.
Ever again.
Yeah, I just don't think it's ever going to stop. I think we're getting close to the point where it's going to be free agency, and if you can get out of a deal and get more money, you're going to find a way to do it. Ironically, the teams who killed themselves were the ones that signed these deals that you can't get out of, which is exactly what we're talking about, Florida State and Clemson.
Yeah.
They signed these lifetime deals, essentially, with the ACC that are so impossible to get out of.
They must have gotten those presidents so drunk. Because it kind of happened.
Back for more.
It kind of happened in the middle of the night.
Come back for more.
I remember, and it was like, oh, everybody, because it was almost, I think it was a unanimous decision. It's like, you had everybody on board for that thing? Tequila shots in the suite at the Hyatt.
No, it's crazy. I mean, that's why they're so desperate to get out, because they're making less than every school in the Big 12. It's like, yeah, Florida State and Clemson recognize that's insane. And then what would happen to the ACC if they lose those two schools? It would be, you would get more defectors. You would either end up getting Duke and North Carolina to follow suit, or they would jump to the Big 10.
Oh, it'd be the Pac-12 all over again. Yeah.
You would kill the ACC.
And then the dregs will get either soaked up by the Big 12 or the AAC.
Which, again, throws another wrinkle into it, which is ultimately, if the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC are the only three remaining, and they are vying for who's going to survive out of this group and who's going to, stay, and then who's going to try to avoid becoming Oregon State and Washington State of the East, she's like, well, just get the big schools then.
See,
just go get, if those are the schools that are going to become available, and how many schools are in the ACC now?
25.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever. Who knows? I don't even know anymore. However many schools are there. But it's like, well, if 2 or 4 of them have value, and let's just say the 4 are Clemson, Florida State, Miami, we'll do 5, North Carolina, and Duke. Those are the 5 that really have a lot of value out of the ACC. The SEC and the Big 10 are going to want to pick that apart and get what they want, and then say, yeah, Big 12, you take Wake and whoever else is
Oh, no. If I heard a report that said Virginia Tech was interested in joining the Big 12, I'd buy that way more.
Yeah.
Because, they'd be in a situation like the 4 corner schools who see the houses on fire and have to find a landing spot. You show me NC State is interested in the Big 12, I'd buy it. You know what I mean? But, if you're UNC, Florida State, I wouldn't put Duke in there, honestly. I could see Duke foregoing everything and just joining the Big East.
Just focusing on basketball?
And just doing basketball.
A little bit of football?
I don't know what Duke's really bringing to the table. But North Carolina, even UVA has been randomly included. I guess you get the D.C. area or something. I don't know. But the middle tier is what I'm looking at if I'm the Big 12, if you're going to add. And the Syracuses of the world I would leave in the wind. Wouldn't you? I mean, there's a bunch of ACC schools I wouldn't go near. Pitt, Boston College, that whole part of the country, hard pass.
Yeah, I just have to say, Utah and BYU finding a good landing spot is just, and it just has to be a good night sleep every night for Tom Holmoe and Mark Harlan. To just be like, man, I'm glad I'm not Boston College.
Right.
Because we don't know what's next. You just don't know how bad it's going to get. And it could get worse. And right now you have a spot on the bus.
And the Big 12 isn't going anywhere.
And right now the Big 12 isn't going anywhere.
The conference expansion conversations, we're not talking about the Big 12 folding. Quite the contrary. It's aggressive. And they're just chipping away at the narrative to try and see what falls out of it. And I don't think realistically it's going to be Florida State or Clemson. But when the dam breaks, what comes your way?
And there are going to be good schools that get left behind, like Syracuse, which is a historically great athletic program.
Yeah, Donovan McNabb hasn't been there for a while.
The basketball team is not what it once was, but was the real deal for a while.
Basketball isn't a thing.
But right, exactly right. That's the thing. You can. It doesn't matter what you have done.
No, if there is a basketball league anymore, that's the Big 12. So if you really wanted Syracuse, I suppose that you could make that happen.
But they'd make more sense to just go to the Big East, exactly like you're saying with Duke. Just like their football program doesn't matter at all.
Right.
Go join the Big East.
Which is sad for their football program, I suppose, but whatever. But the ACC is the next to go, for sure. It's just a matter of time and what the court decides. And even if the court decides in the league's favor, they will negotiate a buyout. But that'll put the time frame back a couple of years, but they will figure out a buyout. If Texas and Oklahoma can figure out a buyout with the Big 12, then anybody can figure out a buyout with anybody. Because there was a lot of bitterness in that one. A lot of bitterness. So we'll see. If you had to put odds on Florida State and Clemson being in the Big 12 ever, what would you say?
30%?
All right. That's higher than I'd put it, but 30 is not 60.
I don't know what their market share is. I don't know what the value of those programs is. I know it would really help the Big 12. I don't, does it cut into the pie too much for the Big 10 and the SEC? I suspect the historic name value of those schools would be beneficial.
Oh, they'll tell you it's basically worthless.
Yeah, right. They will tell you it's not worth anything.
Basically worthless. Florida, who?
Yeah. Seattle? Seattle? Ugh. Yuck. Have you been to Seattle? And I love Seattle, but it's just like, that's what the Big Ten was selling when they were talking to the presidents at UW.
Yeah.
They're like, are you kidding? That town smells like fish.
The idea that UCLA is getting like a full share and looking at Washington and Oregon just has got to be laughing.
God, can you remember that day on air? That was crazy.
Oh, when USC and UCLA left? Right before we went to Pac-12 Media Day? Like the day before?
Oh, here's the news.
The league's falling apart. What do you know?
The big dogs are gone.
How about that?
Yeah, and again, it's how quickly it destabilizes. Because Florida State and Clemson leave, the ACC's dead.
Well, it depends on how much panic, but yeah. Because other schools that panic. Other schools that do the Oregon and Washington and panic.
Panic added Stanford and Cal.
Right.
They're already panicked.
Yeah.
They can't afford to lose anything, especially into their 4 or 5 marquee schools. And Clemson and Florida State are the marquee of the marquee schools for them. So
yeah, but Boston College would be like, we're here.
Keep us on. We'll go with you.
All right, caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. We're going to qualify you for the Uinta Golf Major giveaway for the Open Championship this week. We're going to assign you a golfer. If your golfer wins, you will receive FootJoy brand rain gear in honor of the Rainy Open Championship. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. More next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you to catch the 30 Seconds to Mars on the Season World Tour 2024 with special guest AFI as they make a stop at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater July 30th. Get your tickets at livenation.com or listen to The Zone all day. Coming up Tuesday the 23rd for your chance to win. Ben, we're watching the USA-Australia game in the background, and Team USA is going to win this game by a large margin. But as with all international games, I can't tell if they're playing well.
Yeah,
they should be winning by 50.
And the Olympics are just different than these exhibitions where, these games used to mean a lot, these exhibition games for these other countries when they would play the U.S. Australia knows they have a legitimate chance to beat the U.S. USA beat Canada last week. Canada knows they can beat the U.S. in an actual medal game, in an elimination game. So how about Michael Potter still being on that roster?
How did that happen?
It was like, we need the guy from Utah, the center. And someone was like, okay, yeah, Walker Kessler. And the guy was like, no, Michael Potter. There's a loss in the translation there of who they were actually looking for. But anyways, these guys know they can beat the Team USA now.
Can they?
I'm still picking Team USA over the field, but there's a lot of teams coming to take a crack at them. There's good rosters out there.
Is there?
There are. I mean,
Team USA has lost recently. Look at number 7 there on Australia.
Who was it? Was it Dante?
No.
Jock Landale?
No.
I mean, their whole roster is NBA players. So you get a team that plays well together. And
there's number 7 right there.
17, but I don't know who that guy is.
No, it's 7.
Joe Ingles?
The bald guy right there.
The chubby bald guy?
Yeah.
Who's dealing with
that guy.
Several knee injuries.
I mean, playing big minutes against Team USA.
Yep. And this Team USA roster is loaded. This is, right now, LeBron just passed it to AD, who passed it to Steph, who passed it to Jason Tatum, and they're ignoring Anthony Edwards in the corner. It's like, okay,
Anthony Edwards is getting frozen out?
This is legit dream team quality, as good a roster as you've ever put together. We do probably forget a little bit that you can look at all the names on the dream team. It's like, well, Larry Bird was borderline washed at that point.
Oh, he was washed.
Magic was old.
Magic wasn't even in the league.
Yeah, this wasn't exactly the prime of a lot of those players. Now, you could argue Carl was there and Barkley was there and obviously Mike was there. So, but yeah, this is a pretty good squad. If this squad loses, it would be an all-time disappointment.
It's a pretty good squad in Anthony Davis.
So we haven't even talked about Joel Embiid coming off the bench.
Anthony Davis stinks. Why is he on the team? Why are the Lakers letting him be on the team? I'll be like, are you kidding me? No, you're going to spend the offseason in a bubble. You can't stay healthy for 10 minutes. You're going to go play in the Olympics on the team. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Micah Potter being there is insane. That is one of the stranger things. I get it. There's not a lot of good American-born centers, especially some that step out and spread the floor the way he can. But
do you need a center?
No, you probably don't. But you know what? And he's not going to be on the final roster. He's on the practice squad that they bring and travel, and they'll cut him in the next couple of days. Man, France is going to be hard. France has Rudy Gobert and Victor Wembanyama in the paint, and then 5 other NBA players on the perimeter as well. Victor Wembanyama can be the best player on the floor. Rudy Gobert regularly is the best player on the floor in international competitions. It's not been unusual at all in his history. That's going to be really difficult to beat. So I'm excited for these Olympics. I'm excited for this men's basketball tournament. No Jazz players involved in any team, international or otherwise.
Which I think is a good thing.
I certainly think you're okay with Lauri Markkanen getting a summer off.
Oh, I don't blame owners. I remember Mark Cuban a few years ago created waves by complaining about his players playing internationally. I don't blame him one bit.
Especially because there's a tournament every year now. It's not just, the Olympics every 4 years. There was, FIBA last year, and it's just there's always something going on.
Now, the players should be allowed to play if they want to. But I don't blame owners being like, oh, now I've got to hold my breath for 2 weeks.
Yep. Dante Exum did blow out his knee in an international game.
That was that his knee or no? It was his knee.
It was his knee. He jumps into the middle of the paint and it just gives out.
His shoulder was preseason.
Yeah.
Like when he came back from that knee, then he hurt his shoulder.
But yeah, your number 5 overall pick.
Down he goes.
After his first year,
right.
When you're like, he just had a breakout over the last 40 games of the season. Your franchise is built around it. And yeah, you're excited he's representing his country. His country's not paying him $80 million to be the face of the franchise.
In fact, they're paying him basically nothing.
Yeah.
Like we have ham sandwiches in the locker room after.
So yes, I'm glad they do it. I like the international basketball. If I was paying players to help my team win and they were going and playing for free for somebody else in an equally or more competitive environment, I would be frustrated.
Now, if Lauri is enlisted in the Army and they can make him do whatever he wants, well, then that's a different story entirely. What a funny storyline from last offseason.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to do my service.
Got to go to the military. You do? You're 7 feet tall.
They shaved his head.
Yeah, right. You can't buy out. You can't pay money to
Buy
get out
out,
of this thing.
Ben.
You can't buy out of. They need more money. They need your money more than they need your physical assets in the Finnish army.
Yeah, but then you can't make everybody else do it.
Correct. You got to get the buy-in.
Yeah.
Once the buy-in drops, everyone stops going. But now you can always point to Lauri went. You think you're better than Lauri Markkanen? You're not.
I don't think so.
You're not, pal.
Now shave your head.
Get in there.
So, yeah, you can make him play internationally if you actually enlist the person in the Army, sure. Because then that's better for him. What a funny thing. But anyway, I think it's a good thing for Lauri and the Jazz that he's not playing.
And Jordan Clarkson, even though I don't know if Jordan Clarkson's going to be on the opening night roster. I don't know if they can trade him. Yeah, seems like Jazz are holding on to all their chips to be able to make moves if they decide to make them.
But I think you can make an argument that being on the national team or in the camp or whatever it was for Walker Kessler last year was actually a net negative for him.
I think he would have done better by being in the summer league.
And you kind of send the signal that you're a thing.
You've made it.
Yeah.
And then he didn't play, and you don't know why he didn't play. At least it's not your control over why he didn't play. Had he gone to summer league last year,
he would have played.
He would have played 7 games. He would have looked good. And you would have hoped his confidence would have been going in the right direction. He goes to Team USA. He doesn't play at all. They lose.
He comes back to the Jazz thinking he's going to roll through his sophomore season and dunk on everybody.
It doesn't.
It doesn't go that way.
Yeah. You lose control of your players.
And now you're worried that, is he an NBA guy or is he a guy? So, yeah, I mean, we talked about earning your spot and how that's a big thing. Earning your spot in the league, earning your spot on teams, getting the benefit of the doubt, all a thing. And you've got Walker, I think his process of earning that was interrupted by USA Basketball and probably sending a signal to him and everyone else that wasn't real. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Be like me skiing with all those expert skiers and being like, I'm that.
I belong there.
No.
Then actually at some point you have to prove it.
Yeah.
They actually rely on you to do something beyond just hanging out on the chairlift.
So, like we talked about so many times, I think Walker playing in the summer I think that was good for him. It was probably good for the Jazz, but it was good for him. Come back down to earth, and you need time on the floor, and we're going to get that.
What is best? There's a lot of Jazz fans. Again, I went on JJ and Alex Friday and said, I think it's pretty clear what they're doing. They're setting themselves up to be one of the 5 worst teams in the NBA, and they're going to have a real chance to get a good draft pick in a draft that's supposed to be very good. Can they do that with this roster intact?
Yeah.
Walker, Lauri, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins. That is 5 NBA somewhat veterans and who can probably help you win each some games.
Well, I don't think they'll play all of them. I mean, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that you'll see that core be consistent.
They're not logging 30 minutes a game together for the Jazz to maximize their plus-minus.
No. I think you'll see guys miss games. I think you'll see extended rehab assignments. And I think you'll see different roles. I mean, how many minutes a game? I don't know. But no, I don't. And I don't think in a perfect world they keep all those guys either. I mean, you mentioned Jordan Clarkson. I wouldn't be surprised if, John Collins were moved at some point. Some of those players where they're borderline, maybe you can get a first-round pick, or maybe you can just say, whatever, just give us a couple seconds and we'll move on.
Here's the teams that were worse than the Jazz last year. Let's do this exercise quickly. And I'll throw another team in here too, maybe 2 other teams in here. But do you think they will be better or worse than the Jazz next season? Because you have to take in the context the whole idea. What did they add this offseason? Do they want to be good? Do they want to tank? Obviously, there's an answer with the Memphis Grizzlies.
They'll be better.
They're healthy. They added Zach Edey. He's worth 35 wins by himself, Zach Edey.
Easy.
Grizzlies are better. Toronto Raptors.
I don't know which direction they're going. Because Scotty Barnes...
He's really good.
Yeah, he's really
Scotty
good.
Barnes might be better than Lauri Markkanen.
Oh, I'd say he is better than
So, yeah, if you want to look at, like, who's their best player and is your best player going to win you too many games, if you're going to throw Lauri Markkanen in that conversation, I think you can really say that same thing with Scotty Barnes. And then also they went out and acquired Kelly Olynyk. Like, they did actually do a couple of things to get better.
And they're in the East. So, okay. Raptors probably better.
Toronto was 6 games worse than the Jazz last year, but they tanked really badly the last half of the season because they wanted to hold on to their pick. Otherwise, it was going to get conveyed to the Spurs. And then because both the Hawks and the Brooklyn Nets jumped up, it did get conveyed to the Spurs.
Brooklyn will be worse, though.
Brooklyn finished with a better record than the Jazz. Are they worse than the Jazz next year?
Yes.
Atlanta finished with a better record than the Jazz. They did just trade DeJounte Murray. Are they better than the Jazz or worse?
Still, yes.
I think they're still better than the Jazz. Another team to throw in this conversation, Chicago. These are 3 teams we're talking about now.
They might be worse.
They might be. I mean, they're lost DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to see. Zach
It looks like
Levine out there.
They finally decided to go.
So those are 2 teams that could be worse. Spurs, better or worse than the Jazz?
Could go either way.
They should be better. Victor's going to take a huge leap. They added Chris Paul. They should get better. I think.
Meh.
Charlotte Hornets.
Likely worse than the Jazz as presently constituted.
I think about LaMelo Ball's good when he's healthy. Wow, Josh Giddey just airballed a 3 really bad. Like, missed
He's
by 5
terrible.
feet. He shot 5 feet short. Hornets are right on that edge for me, where if LaMelo stays healthy, he never does. Brandon Miller goes into his second year, is really good. They could be okay. The player they drafted, Tijon Salon, is not going to make them better next year. He's so raw, he's going to take a while. Trailblazers?
Nope, worse.
Probably worse than the Jazz. They did go out and add the kid from the Wizards, who I like a little bit, their wing, Danny Avdia.
Is Jeremy Grant still with them?
Jeremy Grant's still with them.
How is that a thing?
Does Scoot Henderson get better? Does Anthony Simons play? Is Shaden Sharp good? Like, I can make a case for them, but I don't know if it happens. I think Chauncey's a bad coach. Wizards?
No.
Probably not. They did go out and add Jonas Valanciunas. It is weird some of these teams have added veterans. Went out and added veterans like they're trying to win. And then the Pistons. I think the Pistons actually could be better than the Jazz next year.
I agree with that.
If Cade stays healthy, Cade Cunningham, their former number 1 overall pick. They went out and added Tobias Harris, who's not great, but it's like he's probably better than John Collins.
Well, Monty Williams was obviously the problem.
That had to be Monty's issue. And you know who'll fix it is that J.B. Bickerstaff.
Easily.
Historically a fixer. So, again, the Jazz are just in kind of this mysterious spot where I think if you go out from day one and institute that you're not going to win games, you can lose as many as you want. And a couple of those teams will be better than we think, and a couple of those teams will be worse.
What are the odds Jordan Clarkson's on the team day one?
I think if the Jazz could trade him, they would have already. So maybe there's not this robust market for him. But again, it was hard to trade him last year because he made $25 million. His salary drops to $13, and it's like Jordan Clarkson would help the Clippers. The Clippers are a team that probably could use another guy. So all these conversations the Jazz are having with teams about, Walker Kessler or Lauri Markkanen that are calling to see what the Jazz are interested in, I'm sure the Jazz are also saying, well, what do you think about Jordan Clarkson? 2 second-round picks for Jordan seems like a pretty reasonable deal for some teams that need a good veteran who is a great locker room guy and actually can help you win games in the right spot.
Yeah, but they were looking for more than 2 seconds before. So I don't think Jordan Clarkson's value was all that high. So do you just give up and trade him for whatever?
Right.
Because he does have the value you're talking about, where if you're a veteran team, he can play a role for you that will benefit you.
Clippers,
for sure.
Philly, some of these teams that could execute trades for him.
100% could use him.
Yeah.
But they're not going to trade a first-round pick for him.
No one's given up a first for Jordan.
I don't think so.
No, Jazz would have made that deal already.
Do you just bite the bullet and trade him because you don't need him?
And he could help you win 4 games you don't want to win because Jordan gets really hot in some games.
So I got to think that he's not on the roster.
I kind of think so too.
But they're willing to hold, but I don't think his value's going up. I mean, maybe it will because of the contract, but, I mean, you're going to trade him mid-year and get more? I almost think you got to
I think so too.
Move off it.
Yeah, I think so too. I understand fans' frustration that you can't do the same thing this year where you're just a 500 team until the trade deadline and then you blow it up again. I think you can't continually be drafting 7, 8, 9. Eventually, you got to put yourself in a spot to draft 4th or 5th. And I think you can with this roster. I think if you were to shed Jordan Clarkson, it would be easier because there is a world where just Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, and Jordan Clarkson win you a couple too many games. I'm not worried about Keontae George helping you win games, Taylor Hendricks helping you win games, Walker might help you win a couple because he's good defensively. Cody Williams isn't winning any games this year. Those guys being on the court, as they evolve, are still losing you as many games as they're winning, so it's a net zero.
But I'll flip it on you. If the Jazz wanted to, they could make the playoffs with minimal roster movement.
I think the Jazz could be in the conversation for the play-in tournament.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
The way Houston was last year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If they wanted to.
Yeah, they would have been the last 2 seasons had they not submarined the team
at the end,
at the trade deadline.
So I get fans' frustration, but they could go either way. It leads to their flexibility. Actually, it's a good message to send throughout the league. Like, we could make the play. We could take your young players to make the playoffs. Sure, why not?
I also, a guy that you and I both love, and not to get too crazy on this conversation and derail it at the very end here, but you and I both really like Alperen Şengün in Houston.
Yep.
They took off as soon as he got hurt. Now, I still believe in him, but remember that we had this conversation 6 months ago. Doesn't it seem like an absolute no-brainer just give him the rookie max? Well, they haven't.
Yes.
They haven't. Or Jalen Green. They haven't signed either of those guys to their rookie extensions because they still want to just see, hey, who's our guy here? What's the face of this franchise look like? And they don't want to lock themselves up to a bunch of contracts that they can't afford down the line. So they're playing this really slow. It probably still makes sense for the Jazz to maintain some flexibility in case they decide to punt on either one of those guys.
Yep.
And I will tell you, I had a conversation with somebody high up in the Jazz who said, those guys don't become available. You either got to draft them or it's hard to trade for them. But there was already kind of talk about how good those guys are and recognition in Utah, how good those two players are. I thought they were kind of random names to bring up from somebody in the Jazz.
But if Houston's going to be dumb and not just automatically sign both of them.
Sure, and then figure it out. Then you got to jump. I agree. You but
jump
if
on
they
that
decide
kind of
at some
bad
point,
decision making.
midway through the year, they're like, "Oh, we're going to pick one or the other." I think you just take the other, and you've got all these draft picks on a guy that you think could maybe turn into a star.
If I'm the Jazz, I'm really hoping that's Şengün.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I don't know who you talk to and their belief in Jalen Green, but my belief in him is not high.
And this,
he likes
I'm
to
not
shoot.
trying to imply that the Jazz said those are the targets.
No.
I'm
It's
just
more
saying,
situational. I get what you're saying.
Sometimes names get brought up in weird ways, and you're like, "Oh, you guys have talked about that guy." You've thought about that. You've thought about that before.
Yeah.
You've thought about how do you get those types of players, and you said it was through the draft, but if they become available, all of a sudden you thought, "Oh, we thought those were only guys you could get through the draft, and now one of them's available in a trade."
All right, wrapping up Jake and Ben. Coming up next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two amigos on the airwaves, talking sports. They got him made Jackson on soul. Loves his tie guy, Ben's got style with his scarves. Oh my.
Jake and Ben, want to remind you about Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach Doors and Windows, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255, Peach Doors and Windows. Australia has pulled within 6, Ben.
Oh.
86-80 with 3.5 minutes to go in the game.
These dudes can play. And again, Anthony Edwards is on the floor. Devin Booker's on the floor. Drew Holiday's on the floor. Corner 3 would have made it a close game.
You know what's funny about, we were talking about earning your role and all this stuff. Like in the NBA, it goes too far the other way, where Anthony Edwards should be the star of this team.
Yeah.
He should have the ball the majority of the time. He's probably the best player currently on the team. Maybe Jason Tatum would have an argument, but whatever. You get my point. But he has to stand in the corner with his thumb
in his ear.
Yeah. Because he's not LeBron James or whatever LeBron has earned. Or Anthony Davis somehow is touching the ball, but Anthony Edwards is just standing there.
It is a flaw in general, and we can apply this locally. We can talk about it as small as Summer League and as big as the actual Jazz roster next year, which is it's really hard to develop 7 players who were in their first 3 seasons in the NBA. historically, that's not how it happened. You know what I mean? Brian Russell was on the air with us last year, last week. He was at the Ultimate Sports Bash. And, B. Russ got to come in, and before him it was Blue Edwards, and before him it was John Crotty, and it's like Shannon Anderson, Howard Isley. You had like one guy who would step in and have to carve out a role next to 4 established players. Now you've got all these guys fighting for whatever. It's like you're going to whiff on somebody in Utah because they just didn't get the right opportunity to develop. Now, that's fine. You will have more opportunities to draft guys, but like at some point, you're really betting well on your coaching staff to be able to develop Keontae George and Taylor Hendricks and Bryce Sensabaugh and Kyle Filipowski and Cody Williams and Walker Kessler and Isaiah Collier. It's like the odds are a couple of those guys aren't even just going to get a fair opportunity to figure it out, and you're going to lose them for nothing, which is what we're talking about with Houston in the last segment. Like they're trying to develop all these young guys, Amen Thompson, Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green, now Reed Shepard, and more I'm forgetting about. So all these guys are trying to figure it out, and you're going to end up saying, Şengün's not as good as we thought, and it's actually he's great, but you didn't have enough breathing room for him to get the opportunities he needed to grow or enough structure around him. That is one of the potential flaws that I think is difficult to do. And if you hit, like Oklahoma City has apparently hit developing all these guys, that helped. I do think we're misremembering how many guys they were developing at one time. Shea had a nice long runway to develop next to not Jalen Williams and not Chet Holmgren. They brought those guys in relatively late to this conversation, and they just happened to both hit. But it wasn't 10 rookies at a time. And there were the Alexei Pokuševskis who came and went without being noticed. Josh Giddey is now no longer on the team because there wasn't either they weren't good enough or the opportunity to grow slowly wasn't presented to them.
But if you're, where is Giddey now? Chicago? Mm-hmm. But if you're Chicago, you're hoping it's that situation where Oklahoma City couldn't develop all the guys.
Correct.
And that Giddey was the one that fell through the cracks. Now, I think that they're wrong about that.
And that's the bet I would have made too, move on from Giddey of that group.
But if he turns out to really be a dude, all they gave up is a balding professional bowler.
Is he a good bowler also?
I don't know. He looks like he would be.
But yeah.
Alex Caruso.
Yeah, who's a good defensive player, and I like him a lot. But you're right. If that ends up being a 21-year-old who's got 10 years left in the league and 3 All-Star appearances, it's a great trade.
Right. I don't think that's it. But that's the chance they're taking. Why, for a hot second, there was a rumor surrounding James Wiseman last year and the Jazz, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, that guy's terrible, but maybe he's not. Maybe Golden State just messed it up, and he's going to be a dude.
But maybe the best example of this is Jermaine O'Neal.
Yeah, absolutely. Indiana's like, well, Portland's like, this guy isn't a guy.
We're loaded. He's young. He can't develop here. We're giving up on him. And he turns into one of the 5 best defensive players in the league for a half decade and an all-star. Yeah.
Playoff runs, the whole thing.
So you got to hope that you don't do that. You got to hope that you don't put yourself in that situation with all the young guys you're trying to develop. It's not surprising that Cody Williams looked really good in his 4th game because Keontae George and Walker Kessler were off the floor.
Yeah,
it's like, I've got breathing room. I've got space. I'm going to touch the ball. Same with Kyle Filipowski. He looked better. He had an opportunity to touch the ball. He couldn't do it at all when those other guys were on the floor.
All right, we will talk to you tomorrow. Coming up next, Hans Olsen and Scott Gerard, Hanson, Scotty G, 97.5
Thanks,
BKSL Sports Zone.